What's going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Lineup NFL DFS podcast and live stream week 4 main slate preview. Usually Howard Bender here with me, but you know what? You get James in as a little fill-in. Not a bad replacement. Those of you who follow our MLB DFS podcast and live stream, our NBA DFS podcast and live stream, you know James and I are always bringing you the DFS action, and James, of course, no stranger to the NFL DFS scene himself. James, man, week 4, it's been a pretty good start so far through the DFS season for everybody.
Yeah, it's been a good start, and I'm no Howard Bender, but you know I do root for the better New York team, at least in current standing.
So it's true, they were undefeated.
They were previously undefeated at one point.
Previously undefeated New York Giants.
John, I will say either the Giants or the Bears will be 3-1 going into week 5. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it. I even forgot that the Bears had 2 wins already, given how poorly they've played. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we get any of those teams in our lineups for this week. We do have 12 games on the main. We have obviously the Thursday night football game. We got the Monday night, Sunday night, and we have a Saturday game. Or sorry, not Saturday. We have a 9 o'clock game this week that shortens up our regular main slate here. So let's waste no time. We'll get into the quarterbacks. I do the quarterback coach over at Fantasy Alarm. You can go ahead and check that out. On the cover of this week's quarterback coach is Mr. Jalen Hurts. This is his second appearance on the quarterback coach so far this season. And we'll have to see. We'll have to monitor this one because we could have some weather in this game as storms sort of move up the East Coast. I know you live in the Carolinas, James. You know, we're getting Hurricane Ian working its way through. So that may change come Sunday. We'll see what the weather is like in that game. Maybe a little bit more mobility than throwing for Jalen Hurts. But all in all, he's been just an outstanding DFS play through 3 weeks. You know, 30.8 fantasy points. Gets a Jacksonville team where some are wondering, you know, just how good is this Jacksonville defense? They're tied for the league lead in interception. You know, they're coming off a big road win against the Chargers. They've beaten the Colts. This is going to be their first real test, though. Jalen Hurts is averaging over 300 yards passing for the season. Devonta Smith has come off 2 monster games. A.J. Brown's been a monster. So I like Jalen Hurts here. Again, weather permitting, we'll have to see what happens there on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with any quarterback over 8K, right?
No,
I think they're the clear-cut 1, 2, 3 in fantasy right now, whether it's seasonal or DFS. And Jalen Hurts has obviously, you know, been as good as the other two. If he's not beating you with his arm, he's beating you with his legs. And if he's not beating you with his legs, he's beating you with his arm. He's projected over 200 carries this year, John. The record, I think, is like 150 by Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson actually owns the most rushing attempts, the second most rushing attempts, and third most in a season. So, like,
yeah, makes sense.
It wouldn't be surprising to see, you know, if Jacksonville's secondary is as good as it, you know, has looked, that we see Jalen Hurts revert to week 1 Jalen Hurts, where we saw him 90 yards on the ground and a score. Hey, guess what? 24 fantasy points, still pretty dang good. So,
yep.
And you know, positive Devonta Smith back in practice in full capacity on Thursday as well. So you love to see that in the Jalen Hurts camp.
Yep, for sure. You mentioned the top 2 guys. Listen, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson play against one another. Baltimore's defense has struggled against the. We've seen that now for a few weeks, and obviously two weeks prior, tagging them for 460 yards and 6 scores. Josh Allen himself coming off a 400-yard passing game against Miami last week. So that should be a pretty fun game to watch. You know, the one thing we always talk about when you pick your quarterback is how expensive is their stacking options, right? And Josh Allen, if you're going to stack Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs is a pretty expensive wide receiver on this. Mark Andrews is the top-priced tight end. You know, the stacking options for Jalen Hurts are a little bit more reasonable, whether you go with an A.J. Brown or you go with Devonta Smith. So also something to kind of pay attention to there as the top tier. But I agree with you. I think all of them are play. I lean Allen over Jack, just given the Buffalo defense, but Jackson's also ran for over 100 yards now in back-to-back game. Again, all 3 of them in strong spots. If we're looking in the mid-tier, you know, what do we do at Russell Wilson? $6,700, hasn't looked really good since week 1. You know, Las Vegas, though, they just lost to the Tennessee Titans. You know, they're 0-3. You know, this is a spot where maybe we finally can see Russell Wilson be a viable fantasy quarterback.
I mean, it's not for a lack of attempts. We're just not really not getting that, like, patented long ball from Russell Wilson. Everything short, dink and dunk. I mean, just in 20 completions against the Niners, 5.6 yards per reception. Like, just nothing that we've seen in the past from Russell Wilson. I do think we're going to get him to air it out a little bit here against Vegas. And again, 30-plus attempts in all 3. We saw 42 in week 1 against Seattle. So the attempts are still there. We know the weapons are there.
Look at those
They're
points.
healthy.
16, 16, and 11 for this Broncos
Just
offense.
Nightmare. Good thing their defense has been lights out, especially over the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think we could see Russell Wilson be pretty popular in the mid-tier, and he's looked very good with his rapport with Courtland Sutton, and week 1 he looked really good with Jerry Jeudy. So, we know the weapons are there. Albert O, even though he played the 3rd most snaps at the tight end position in Denver, we know he is a viable pass catcher as well as a running back. So, sure, but I don't know, John. Let me flip this to you, because I think the top 3 guys are where all the ownership's going to go, and then Russell Wilson. And then I really don't think there's anything in this mid-tier, maybe. And then
if Dak plays, I have some interest.
If Dak plays, sure. Washington's defense has been dreadful. We did see him on the field, but he didn't practice on Thursday. But if Dak doesn't play, I don't think anyone – I mean, I think the next viable options are under 6K.
Yeah, I mean, dart throws at Aaron Rodgers against New England, but I don't really know.
Another dink and dunk offense so far. It's just –
Yep, I agree with you. But you're right. Under 6K is probably the spot where you go. In the quarterback coach, there weren't many appealing low-price guys. I put Jared Goff in there. This is a game that has a 50.5 game total. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown hasn't practiced this week. That's obviously concerning. Top target goes away from him, but they still have guys that can be productive. DJ Chark, TJ Hawkinson can step up there against Seattle. There is no Jamal Adams, to cover Hawkinson, who's a really good, cover tight end guy. No DeAndre Swift, but they do have, Jamal Williams who can catch the football a little bit. So it's not an ideal spot given who may not be available for Detroit this week. But we're looking at 2 bad defenses, 2 bad teams, but a 50.5 game total. Detroit's at least at home. So maybe Goff can get it done here at $5,900. Last week against Minnesota, only 14 fantasy points, but 26 against Washington, 16 against Philly. So, not perfect, but
no, it never has been.
Right. But maybe someone you can include in there. And I feel the same way about Matt Ryan, where he's at 5,600. Not great, but Tennessee's defense, even Derek Carr last week still had a really good fantasy day. All it takes is Michael Pittman to go off for a couple scores and Matt Ryan gets there. $5,600 for Matt Ryan is fine. But after that, I don't know. Geno Smith at $5,400. The one thing we've talked a lot about, myself and Andrew Cooper when doing the fantasy football seasonal podcast, is that Jeff Okudah has been really good. He shut down Justin Jefferson. He shut down Terry McLaurin. So Devonta Smith in week 1 had a 0, so if he's on Metcalf or Lockett, that just takes away one of the top guys. Tyler Lockett's had over 100 yards in back-to-back games. If he's on him, then you're relying on Geno Smith to throw downfield to DK Metcalf, not really his game. So again, even though Detroit's giving up points to everybody, I don't know if this is a Geno Smith spot or not.
I guess it depends, right? What are we buying? Are we buying the 50.5 game total, or are we buying that smoke and mirrors? Is this a game that's gonna go 40 points, because it is 2 bad teams who, and you mentioned, Amon-Ra St. Brown is questionable. DJ Chark didn't practice either, John, today. So Detroit might also be without their guys.
Hawkinson's question. I think the whole team goes questionable.
The whole team is questionable. The whole team is questionable. And I do kind of like Geno. I feel like it would probably shadow Metcalf if I had to guess. More often than not, Seattle can move Lockett around the field more.
The completion percentages for Geno is great. 72, 80, and 82. He threw 44 times last week. He threw 30 times against San Francisco in a tough matchup, but he's being efficient. Yards per average, 7.4, 7, 6.6. Those aren't awful, this could be a Geno Smith spot if you're making multiple lineups. Tyler Lockett's the receiver that you want there. But I got nothing else. What are your thoughts on, are you a Daniel Jones guy? Do you buy into Cooper Rush if he starts over Dak, and given the matchup against Washington here? How are you feeling about these guys?
No, Jones just has no viable receivers. I think he played pretty well given what he was stacked up against in Dallas, where it was just an absolute mess.
Yeah, he got sacked 8 times, didn't he? He just had no
opportunity. no opportunity to throw, but 79 rushing yards, we know that's in his bag. There's no options for him to throw to. No practice from Wandale, no practice from Kadarius Toney again. The only 2 exciting weapons the Giants have outside of Saquon Barkley, not healthy.
How disrespectful you are of Richie James.
My apologies, Richie James. I'm sure you're going to get plenty of targets this week and like 60 yards on like 11 receptions, like 53 yards because he just, that's what he is. No, I don't think we need to go below Geno Smith. I agree with your Matt Ryan take because I think Tennessee's has looked dreadful. I'm not as much in on Jared Goff as you, but yeah, that could change if St. Brown and Chark practice Friday, and then it's like all
again. That one just looked at me. I'm looking at the game total. I'm like, I don't like anybody here, but I guess I would be Goff if those guys were active.
Right.
So.
Right.
Running back position here. Jonathan Taylor's at the top. CMC hasn't practiced in 2 days, but there's been some reports that he's probably okay.
Yep.
Henry gets a Colts team, tough defense to run on. Saquon gets Chicago. We saw Dameon Pierce have success last week. Nick Chubb seems to be scoring a lot for for Cleveland. And then, Khalil Herbert ran for 150 yards last week against Houston. Austin Eckler's here. Keenan Allen left today's practice with that hamstring problem. So, that's kind of like the top grouping. How are you ranking out these running backs?
I mean, I really love the spot Jonathan Taylor's in. I think Indy can build the lead and then just feed the beast the whole second half. Don't call me a homer, but Saquon is,
No homerism. The guy had a pretty good game against Dallas. I mean, again,
limited touches too, because they're trailing. They just didn't get him the ball as much as they should have.
He looks like the old Saquon. We'll knock on wood and see how long that lasts, but he looks like the old Saquon.
I would knock, but my dogs would start barking, so I will knock. You guys heard John's knock. That's good for mine too. Henry's in a great spot, but I mean, Indy's defense looked pretty good last week against the Chiefs, who everyone thought, they're back. They're fully back. And then they weren't. And then CMC, we know CMC's probably going to go on their own again. Huh? Like there's
probably, especially with the injury designation that he's dealing with here.
Yep.
But back-to-back 100-yard rushing games, it's just the lack of passing involvement is just wild. Baker Mayfield's finding a way to mess up Christian McCaffrey is just hilarious to me. Nick Chubb, I think, is interesting just because of the volume that he's been getting. He keeps finding the end zone. And this could be a game where Cleveland just grinds down Atlanta. So that's kind of your top price guys. I know on the cover, I think he has him on the cover, but Eckler on the watch list. I think I have that correct for Bender here this week, going up against Houston. So Eckler's rushing numbers, not great. 1.3 yards per carry, 2.8, 2.6, but saving fantasy managers in the passing game. And if Keenan Allen's not going to be active, that's it. Look at Keenan Allen misses week 2, week 3, and look what happens. 18 targets, 17 catches for Austin Eckler. So it could be a big day there for him. In the mid-tier, where are you, what stands out? Are you buying Cordarrelle Patterson, in his early season, productions here? Javonte Williams against Las Vegas, how are you feeling about this 6K running back range?
Are you concerned at all about this, the rest that they're giving Cordarrelle Patterson? Is that something you think we should be looking into a little bit? He hasn't practiced in 2 days for rest purposes, right?
No, I think they're resting him because they realize they need to give him 20 carries, and he's not accustomed to this. I mean, again, a bad Seattle team, 17 for 141. New Orleans, 22 for 120. Rams, a tough spot, but still 4.1 yards per carry against, I guess my biggest problem is they're not throwing him the football. They're just strictly using him as a running back. He can catch the football, get him in, throw a swing pass,
he was a receiver his whole career.
I don't know, use him a little bit more for the PPR fans out here. But $6,500 against, Javonte is kind of sad because they gave Melvin Gordon the touchdown last week. He got in the red zone. He scored. Elliott is, maybe slowly becoming more of a timeshare within Tony Pollard than people.
He looks good though.
He does. He had 27-yard run.
He looks good, dude.
But he's 6K. Jamal Williams is going to be chalky because, assuming Swift doesn't play, which is the expectation. Again, Cordarrelle Patterson just ran for 140 yards against them.
That's your cash game. That's one of your cash game running backs.
Yeah, and he can do everything. 20 for 87. He has 4 rushing touchdowns in 3 weeks. So you're going to see a lot of Jamal Williams. I think Tony Pollard is a sneaky GPP guy as well. I mean, again, last week didn't get any passing usage, but big plays back-to-back weeks. It's kind of his calling card. It's a guy that nobody will be in on because of the price point. But
yeah, I think that's the problem, right? And I mean, I'm not saying it's not sustainable, but can we bank on a big play every single week? Because that's what Tony Pollard, based on volume, we need a big play every week. Look what happens in week 1. He doesn't get it, and he's absolute done.
Yeah, tougher matchup obviously against Tampa Bay, but again, you're not wrong. Like he made the 46-yard catch against Cincinnati, 46-yard run against your Giants. They brought in Jason Peters in that series, and the first play from scrimmage, he opened a hole a truck could drive through. And then like 2 plays later, Zeke gets the benefit of running behind him, and he runs for 27 yards. So the big man can still block it. So if they, start giving Peters more snaps, you start running around the left side of that offensive line, there could be a lot of success coming for Dallas there. So, but I mean, under the under 6K range itself is kind of, interesting because of the backs that are there. Singletary hasn't been great running the football, but he had 9 catches last week. Is that sustainable? Probably not. Miles Sanders last week, only 15 carries in a game where they won 24-8. You would have figured that maybe he would have had more success on the ground there. Right. He didn't. So, when it comes to sort of this value grouping, like, I don't know. Pierce, teams can run on the Chargers. Maybe Pierce at 56. Herbert at 57 against the Giants. Those are probably some value guys people will take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your Singletary point, it's something we talked about earlier with potential missing receiver. Gabe Davis didn't practice on Thursday. So if Gabe Davis doesn't go, does that lead to more dump downs for Singletary? The passing volume, Josh Allen that's never been his MO. Right. So I don't think it's going to I think that's more of an anomaly. But
as somebody that owns Singletary in season long, I was thrilled to see it last week because he did nothing else. So
I do think with Montgomery expected to not play, or at least not practicing again, Herbert's going to be another popular option. I mean, I think this does bring you back to the quarterback position. And like to your point, like how do I get Allen and Diggs? Well, you can go a chalk Herbert and a chalk Jamal Williams, right? 61-57, 2 guys in good matchups. The Giants, Tony Pollard and Zeke ran all over them last week. And we know Jamal Williams is in a great game environment as well. I think those two are very easy to fit with your spend up at quarterback, with your pairing of Stephon Diggs, or you go Lamar Jackson with Andrews and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I don't think the sub 6K is all that difficult. I think Herbert is a great play. I think Pierce is a nice pivot.
What do you think about Breece Hall?
That was what my question to you, because we know Zach Wilson loves to dump it down.
Yeah. Well, it's not only that, but Pittsburgh has not been good against the run now for 2 years.
Sure.
Last week, Breece Hall finally played more snaps than Michael Carter. I am encouraged, obviously, the fact that, he has 21 targets through 3 weeks. Now Cleveland didn't really get targeted much. Michael Carter was there. The changing of the quarterback is certainly interesting, because now we don't, I don't know if they're going to let Wilson throw 60 times like they let Joe Flacco throw, but that's certainly possible.
Well, the claim was, during the whole injury, was he's not coming back until he's 110%. Right? So if he is 110%, there should be absolutely no limitations. And the Jets stink. Yeah. So they're
they stink, but so does Pittsburgh, right?
Well, that's fair. And they haven't won, and Pittsburgh hasn't covered a spread without TJ Watt. And I think they're 0-8 without TJ Watt.
But I do like Breece Hall. I think this could be a Breece Hall coming out party, running the football. So
Same. I mean, it could be both though. It could be running the football, but he could continue the trajectory in the receiving game as well.
Yep, I agree. I also like, just for PPR purposes, McKissick targets the last couple of weeks with minutes with the Washington trailing. Pretty good. 16 targets, 13 catches, double-digit fantasy points now back-to-back weeks for PPR. Next week is Brian Robinson Day, right? We're full expectations. Robinson comes back. Gibson's gonna probably not have a job anymore, or at least slowly not have a job anymore. But McKissick's always going to be that guy catching the football. So I don't mind McKissick there in that spot against. After that, though, I don't really know. I don't know where else to take a peek. I know a lot of people are high on Craig Reynolds this week as someone that could split carries with Jamal Williams. He's $4,700. Ken Walker showed some bursts, but you can't trust that he's going to get the carries. Same thing.
I think it's Penny. Well, I think it's, if you're going to play one of them, you're playing Rashad Penny.
Okay.
This is a good spot for running backs.
I just know that on Twitter, at least, people are championing for more Kenneth Walker involvement.
Well, they can champion for him, but he's not playing snaps. He didn't play any snaps. Maybe he's going to play a little more because Travis Homer was placed on the IR.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? I think there's an opportunity for Walker eventually to maybe pop a little bit more moving forward. If CMC is not playing, though, you got Chuba Hubbard at 47. And where's our boy Donta Foreman?
Donta Foreman.
I don't even see his price tag. He's gonna be low.
He is 4K. He is
4K,
min salary.
Yeah. So if CMC is out, one of those two are gonna start. Chuba's more to will take on some of the passing work. Not that they pass the ball to the running back all that often. I guess Chuba's more expensive, so I guess maybe that will be the direction they go. But will be interesting to see kind of how that value shakes out at the running back position. But I don't really have anybody else here for you for running back.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
All right. Wide receiver. As I mentioned, Josh Allen, top price quarterback. Stephon Diggs, top price wide receiver. If you want to fit it in, go for it. Man's averaging 30 fantasy points through 3 weeks. Now, obviously, he had 47 against Tennessee, only 14 last week. But target monster, 26 targets the last 2 weeks. He's got 27 catches on the year. He's that guy. So
that big game came without Gabe Davis too. So monitor Gabe Davis status.
Correct.
The rest of the week.
Devontae Adams, I don't really know if I want this spot for him. The way Denver's defense has been playing and the fact that they haven't been. I always talk about they need to have a Randy ratio effect here with Devontae Adams, where Las Vegas needs to throw at Adams like 12 times for them to have success winning a football game. But until that happens, I don't really know. But the 7K range here. I gotta like Mike Williams again now. With Keenan Allen unlikely to play with that hamstring. Michael Pittman in a great spot against Tennessee. We just talked about what Diggs did against them at $7,200. And Mac Hollins even had the big game against Tennessee last week. So you gotta think Pittman's in a great spot. And then of course AJ Brown's at 74. But like the way things are playing, do you play AJ Brown at 74? Do you play Devonta Smith at 58? I mean, like.
Yep.
Are more people going to do that? And therefore, A.J. Brown is the less rostered player. This is the Jamar Chase T. Higgins. And this is what helped me. This is what helped me have the monster week 17 last year. Right. I paid up for Jamar Chase. And T. Higgins was the higher roster of the two. Jamar Chase went for 266 and 3 scores. I mean, who's the bigger play? Is it Smith? Is it Brown? Is it worth the savings? I guess weather dependent in that matchup as well, come Philadelphia. But, with such a big price disparity, people playing Hurts, it almost feels like Smith would be the guy getting more of the roster exposure because the last 2 weeks when AJ Brown could just as easily go out there and do the same thing.
So I'm looking at, if you go to fantasyalarm.com/NFL/draft percentage, John, to check our draft percentage as of right now of this recording. AJ Brown is the 3rd highest projected owned receiver. Devonta Smith is the 6th. So there's not really much of a discrepancy. So I mean,
either of them under 10%.
Yes, Devonta Smith.
AJ
Brown's over.
It's probably where I would go then. If that holds true, we'll see. Our draft percentage forecaster gets updated throughout the weekend. So we'll see as we get closer to roster lock if anything changes there. If that's the case, I think I would rather play Devonta. He's cheaper and
big savings,
in lower roster. So, but that's not to take away anything from AJ Brown here. They're all fine. Hollywood Brown's been really good. $6,900 for him against Carolina. My one worry is the fact that they're on the road. I don't know how Arizona's offense is a little unorganized as it is now. Them moving on the road could be a tough spot for them. Maybe
a lot of weird
contrarian play.
A lot of moving parts in that receiving core too.
Yeah, we're waiting for Rondale. Is Rondale back yet?
Yep. So Rondale's practiced for a couple days, but now Dortch is on the injury report. AJ Green's doubtful. Yeah. So like it might be another day of just 20 targets for Marcus Brown.
Throwing to Hollywood Brown. Yeah.
It's just Hollywood Brown, and that is it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. 14 of 17 against the Rams. So much for like Jalen Ramsey. Dortch had a big game. Marquise Brown had a big game. Right. We saw week 1, Diggs torch Jalen Ramsey. Drake London, didn't he score against it? Didn't he have a good game against the Rams? Jalen Ramsey's not stopping anybody right now. So Ceedee Lamb, big day with Cooper Rush against your Giants. Again, if whoever's the quarterback.
Could have been bigger.
Could have been bigger if he didn't just completely drop a wide open touchdown. Yep. That would have been like a 40-yarder too, right? Yep. Listen, target share has been great. 11 targets or more in all 3 games. Cooper Rush with him in 2 games. 7 for 75, 8 for 87 in a score. So if that's what it is, sign me up. If it's Dak Prescott, I'm good with it. I love this price tag for Ceedee Lamb. $6,700 for Ceedee Lamb just feels good.
Yeah, he's a 7K plus player every single week, and there's no reason.
Definite cash game play.
Yeah, definitely cash game play. Definitely. Receiver. So this makes me feel good about like that chalky running back position because man, I love receiver here.
There's a lot of good matches. We talked about CD. There's probably not a week I'm playing Kirk. That Philly secondary is just ridiculous. So probably gonna be out on them there. Amari Cooper lately, have you seen what he's been doing even with Jacoby Brissett there? Back-to-back 100-yard games with a score. for Amari Cooper at $6,300. I mean, you tell me. It's Atlanta's defense, right? Like, Tyler Lockett just went off against them. Jacoby Brissett doesn't have to throw, too much. He's not throwing too much, but it's all going to Amari Cooper, right? Like, he throws for 200 yards and 100 of it goes to the number 1 receiver on the team.
Could have been even a bigger day. He's another one who dropped a touchdown pass in that Steelers game. Atlanta Falcons have allowed the 5th most receiving yards to receivers this year and 6 touchdowns already to opposing wide receivers. So I'm okay with like playing Cooper as a one-off. Like, I don't think we need to play him with Jacoby Brissett.
Right.
Because I don't want to play Jacoby Brissett.
Right.
But
we don't want to play Jacoby Brissett.
No, it doesn't seem very profitable. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine with Cooper. Probably all formats. I know week 1 was kind of a dud, but since we've gotten that out of our way, I mean, dude, 26 plus points for Cleveland in 3 straight games, and Cooper 10 plus targets in back-to-back games. Gotta love the volume there.
Yeah, again, they're scoring on the ground, but teams are so worried about stopping Nick Chubb that Cooper's just getting some softer defenses to run against. So big fan of that. You can play Drake London on the opposite side if you want to. Again, Cleveland's defense, they're better, but maybe Myles Garrett doesn't play in this game, right? Like, he flipped his Corvette or something like that.
Doesn't seem like he's gonna,
right? So that could help that pass rush, give them a little bit more time there if you want to go in that direction. We talked about Tyler Lockett with Geno Smith, 9 for 76, 9 for 107 the last 2 weeks for him at $5,900. This is, again, 50.5 game total. Detroit's stopping nobody but Jeff Okudah, a guy who I think was a top 5 pick 2 years ago, right? Like, he's come out there and he shut down some top receivers. So if he gets a Lockett assignment, that could be spell trouble there for him. So tough to trust.
So I'm looking at, I'm going to get Okudah's slot snaps, but Lockett has lined up in the slot 63 times, 83 outside. So I feel like he could avoid Okudah if he's...
that would be great if that's the case. So wide receiver cornerback matchup report. Ryan Hallam does it. So you can certainly go ahead and check that out as well to get the cornerback matchups. So
six slot snaps this year for Jeffrey Okudah.
Right,
so
good. You know what? Let's hope that ends up being the case there and Lockett gets himself the favorable matchup, because $5,900, the way he's been playing right now, is certainly appealing. We've talked about Devonta Smith at 58. Brandon Cooks kind of a letdown last week, and I don't know if this is really the spot I want to go to him against the Chargers. Generally they have a decent defense there. Curtis Samuel against Dallas. We know the target share continues to be here there for him. He's not a big yardage guy, but 877 catches in a full PPR league is kind of enough to help you out at $5,700. So receiver is definitely loaded. I feel like we haven't really hit a guy that we don't like yet. For the most part, like, there's been a couple, but there's a lot of yeses when it comes to how we're feeling about these wide receivers.
Yeah, and with Samuel too, John, just a little caveat. There's always the opportunity for like 3 or 4 carries in a game too. So like, he can make up where he doesn't necessarily stretch the field, gets those 4 carries. I mean, 20-something yards is a possibility, and then an extra couple points, maybe a score. So yeah, he's really doing it all. And I like the guy below him, especially if you're playing Lamar Jackson. I know the targets haven't been great for Rashad Bateman, and it's kind of like I don't want to be like I said about Tony Pollard. Like, we need a big play. Kind of have needed a big play with Rashad Bateman so far too, but like, doesn't it feel like everything Baltimore's doing right now is just a big play? Like, everything Lamar Jackson is touching is turning to gold.
It is. Obviously Buffalo's defense, even with Buffalo's defense, like, losing 4 starting secondary guys last week, like, they still played well, but Lamar's just a different creature, right? You have to defend him completely differently, when you're going up against him. So I like Bateman as well for a big play guy. A lot of people are going to stack Andrews obviously with Lamar, and if you want to be a little bit different, you play Bateman instead and save some money there. You're probably doing yourself a good spot. I would like to play some of the Jets. I just don't know which one yet. It's just probably a wait and see thing with Zach Wilson, but again, Garrett Wilson's looked really good, and the Pittsburgh defense, like you've mentioned, just not really that strong this year. So the good target share for Wilson with Flacco. Andrew Coop was pointed out though that the Jets are on pace to throw the football like 890
most ever
times through 3 weeks, which is literally the most passing attempts ever. Last year, Tom Brady threw over 700 times, and everybody's like, that is ridiculous. And they're on pace to throw like 150 more times. So, we'll see. We'll see if that holds true or not. Guys in that 5K range, you mentioned if Davis doesn't play. Last week, Isaiah McKenzie, 7 catches, 76 yards, and a score. Didn't do much in week 2, but that's because Stephon Diggs did everything. So, I'm not going to hold that totally against him unless that's what happens, right? Unless when like they just go to Diggs when Davis isn't there, but something to look at for sure. We'll see if DJ Chark is healthy. If Amon-Ra St. Brown sits, we could go there. Josh Palmer, obviously, if Keenan Allen's out, we can go back to Josh Palmer. Back-to-back good weeks for him. 6 catches, 99 yards against Jacksonville. Had the touchdown against Kansas City. So 5K range for him there. Under 5K receivers, anybody, that's at least jumping out to you?
Romeo Doubs seems like he'll be popular. I know Christian Watson practiced, so, he'll be back, but they did lose Sammy Watkins, right? Mm-hmm. So I like Romeo Doubs. He's kind of been the guy since the preseason, right? That was like Christian Watson was hurt, and Romeo Doubs got all the rub, and he's been really good. I'd be interested there. Jahan Dotson, even though he was bad in week 3, 8 targets.
Yeah, that's the Philly defense, though. I tried to warn everybody.
As the defense.
Philly's secondary. I understand what happened in week 1 against Detroit, where they gave up a lot of points, but since then, Philly's secondary has literally shut down the Vikings and Washington in back-to-back weeks here. But I'm with you. Diggs is going to be on McLaurin, right? So Dotson's going to have the off corner there. I like that. And Josh Reynolds, if he plays, again, another Lion limited, but if Amon-Ra St. Brown sits, he had 10 targets last week for 96 yards. So, Josh Reynolds could very much be a guy that finds himself in play as well there. So
you buying into Matt Collins, John? Back-to-back pretty good games.
If Renfro's out, I guess we kind of have to.
Miss practice again.
It is a tough spot against Denver, but it could be something that we take a peek at there.
Return of the Mac.
Rich James at 4K? Talk to me.
Dude, I think he's going to be pretty popular. They just do not have able bodies.
By default, they have to play Kenny Galladay, right? He's $3,900.
No, they're gonna still play David play Sills for whatever reason. He is horrible. It needs to end. That needs to end. But I don't know what the alternative is. Yeah. Just give Darius Slayton snaps. He doesn't want to be there. They don't want him there. Right. Literally by default, John.
What did Brian Daboll do that he got to a team and decided to just make every wide receiver?
But think about this. Who is of the receiving core? Who are the only Brian Daboll guys? Wandale, because he drafted him, and Richie James because he came over in free agency. Yeah. There's the only 2 guys that.
But how did he go over there and alienate? Literally, he's supposed to be a good coach, right?
Well, it's not that he's been bad, but I just think that he has expectations, and
a bunch of guys that don't want to work on that job.
A bunch of guys that aren't meeting his expectation because Kenny Galladay, finally gets in the game, finally has a crucial target in the 4th quarter, drops
it. Just straight up boots it.
Yeah. Literally a crucial snap. So he's back out of Daboll's good graces. I really think if Daniel Jones throws the ball 30 times, right? 10 are going to Richie James, 10 are going to go to Daniel Bellinger, and then 10 are probably Saquon.
Sills. Yeah, your boy
Sills gets 1 or 2 mixed in. And obviously, Tony and Wandale are not fully ruled out. Earlier in the week, they were close to being back.
Yeah.
Friday's practice will obviously be
and you do the injury report on Friday, so
it will be the tell-all. If they don't practice, they're probably not going to play. Yeah, man, I think Richie James is going to be very popular. But again, the expectation when we're talking about Richie James is he's not running very far off the line. It's the depth of target is not going to be all that great. But if, you get week 1, week 2 production, double-digit fantasy points in 4K, you can't really hate it. So, yeah, I think he's in play. Just not going to be all that exciting.
I agree. I actually don't mind Christian Watson here if he's active.
Same.
In the 2 weeks that he's been on the field for Green Bay, 60+% snap share. So there is no Sammy Watkins. This is something that I wrote up with the Romeo Doubs spotlight article this week. In the game where Lazard, Watson, and Watkins were all active was week. Romeo Doubs played just 37% of the offensive snaps. Obviously, Sammy Watkins is out. Alan Lazard's been playing 90% of the snaps. Watson played 66%. Does Doubs take a step back when Watson comes in? Has Doubs now done enough to leap Watson? Probably. But they don't have any other wide receivers in Green Bay. So $3,700 against New England. Christian Watson, full practice Thursday. I wouldn't mind throwing him in a lineup if we need a spend down because he's a big play guy. He should have had a touchdown in week 1. Just completely dropped. It would have been like a 70-yard score. You know, and New England last week gave up a lot of big plays to Baltimore. So I do have a little interest in Christian Watson here because Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. He's the only real deep guy they got. So I could see a potential spot for him there.
On his first play. On his first snap.
Yeah,
first target.
He's very big. He's very fast. He immediately gets wide open, and he just dropped it. So
yeah, I mean, we've heard Rodgers rave about Christian Watson literally the entire offseason. So I'm right there with you, dude.
Okay. Let's go tight end. At the top, we have Andrews. We know that he is obviously a
top option of
top option, even in a tough matchup. I mean, you know, he's a Mark Andrews. Darren Waller against Denver, you know, for whatever reason, again, another guy that just doesn't feel like he's getting the targets he deserves. You know, last week against Tennessee, just 5. Like, you know.
If Renfro's out.
Yeah, maybe, I guess. Zach Ertz against Carolina, you know, I don't know. Freiermuth didn't do anything until the final drive last week. He had 2 catches for 40 yards, all in the final drive. If Amon-Ra St. Brown is out, Hawkinson's in 4,100, I might go there. I didn't mean to skip over Kyle Pitts.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. Because they finally utilized him and he won last week. You know, but again, Cleveland generally has a good defense here, so I don't know if they'll let Kyle Pitts get off or not, but FK Kyle Pitts, again, he's a 6K tight end when they want to throw him the football. You know, there is a little bit of value. I think chalk Gerald Everett here.
Yeah.
If Keenan Allen doesn't play, $4,000 for Gerald Everett. You know, we saw the target share that he gets, you know, 16 targets the last 2 weeks. No Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen left practice again today for those who are just watching now, you know, with that hamstring bothering him still. $4,000. I think Gerald Everett against Houston is probably going to be the core tight end spot for many.
Yeah, man. I mean, even in that KC game where he doesn't score, there's that big play where he picks it up and like asked to come off the field and then stayed in, and then Herbert threw him the ball, even though like, hey, dude, like he wanted off the field.
He was completely gassed. Yeah, and they ran.
And then he throws that pick, which could have resulted in a touchdown. So clearly, Gerald Everett is, has built a good rapport with Herbert, and especially, I mean, touchdown week 1, could have had one week 2. Yeah. Week 3 was just a disaster all around. But yeah, I think Everett is a very good play for him. I think this position in this tier is like pretty good. Like if Knox plays and Gabe Davis doesn't, there could be touchdown upside there.
Yeah.
Njoku's looked really good. I mean, at least last week looked really good, and gets Atlanta here.
Yeah, Higbee had a big game against Atlanta, so you could see it in Njoku.
So I like those 3 guys. I mean, Everett being the lead dog of the 3, but I like all 3 of those guys.
I agree with you. Value guys, are we, does Cole Kmet ever rise from the ashes?
No, never.
2 catches, never. 3 targets, 40 yards last week,
They just don't throw it. Like
they have to though, eventually, right?
I mean, where is if they're winning, they're 2-1.
How did everybody, including the team beat writers, hype Kmet and Mooney this year and this offense and letting Fields rather go and let Justin Fields go? And this is the offense we've seen through 3 weeks. Like, how did everybody get it wrong? Like, where did we go wrong here?
Well, they just have decided, like, well, running the football is winning us games, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And like, that's been what's beaten the Giants. I mean, the Cowboys destroyed New York in week 3. So I don't think that's going to change. Like, if Justin Fields throws 20 times in a game, I think that should be the lead story of all of fantasy football. So, I mean, if you want to play Cole Kmet and he has 5 of Justin Fields' 18 targets this week, good Godspeed.
Yeah. Are you buying Tyler Conklin's usage here, or is that just a product of them throwing 100 times?
I mean, I think CJ Uzomah the snap share is gonna rise eventually. So maybe it's not this week.
They've been using him way too much, more than anybody would have ever expected.
More than they should, for sure. So no, I think I'm out.
Cover of the tight end coach this week is Hunter Henry from Andrew Cooper.
Well, that's interesting considering Jonnu Smith had 1 billion targets. Oh no, he didn't.
You didn't know. They've been throwing to the wide receivers more, but I'm thinking this might be a Brian Hoyer thing. Or like Brian Hoyer, Hunter Henry, maybe. They're just going to connect against Green Bay. Maybe.
I think if I'm going cheap, I feel like Bellinger would be the guy, just given like the usage and snap share has gone up, and now no Sterling Shepard. Like,
sure. I like Bellinger too, by the way, so I agree with you on that call. I don't really have any other value guys, though. I know some people like Likely, but Duvernay's back, so I think that kind of kills his value.
I likely won't be going there.
I agree with you. Defense. Is there an obvious defense for you this week?
Obvious defense this week. I don't. Not in like the value tier. I went to value. I mean, if Brian Hoyer starts, like Green Bay's defense is really good. So like maybe Green Bay.
This is what I had when I was looking through it as well. I was looking and I'm like, hemming and hawing. I came down to Dallas at 3,500.
I mean, there's so much pressure on the quarterback.
They just get after it, right? And what is Carson Wentz?
Turnover machine.
We saw Carson Wentz last week against a really good defense in Philly, and he did nothing. So
he turned into Carson Wentz.
Yeah, it looked like Carson Wentz. So like they're not the cheapest, obviously, on the board, but I think Dallas is the defense I want this week here. Do your Giants have what in it? Can they get to Chicago here?
They can. They got Thibodeau, and Ojulari back, who led them in sacks. He was their second-round pick of last year. So they got them both back. Leonard Williams not practicing, which is another reason why we would want to play like Khalil Herbert. Sure. Because if there's no Leonard Williams, I mean, there's nothing in the middle for the Giants. I would feel better if Leonard Williams, they got Aaron Robinson back in practice today, one of their rookie corners. So like the defense looks fine. I think you could probably take a shot on either of those. Right? Like one of those two defenses have potential upside. I mean, the Bears have 5 turnovers forced already in 3 games. So Daniel Jones isn't the most safe with the ball. So maybe on the flip side, the Bears against the Giants too.
Could be. Yeah. Giants home again. Good, another home game for them. I don't really have a lot else. I mean, Denver's been really good.
Denver's been good.
2,700, but they're on the road. Las Vegas hasn't been great. I mean, maybe that's your dart throw. Like, but you look at Denver and you look at the offenses they face, and like maybe that's it, right? Like San Francisco, Houston, Seattle.
Jimmy G looked horrible. Yeah, he looked horrible.
So I don't know. Maybe Denver at 2,700 as a value play, but again, there's not a lot else down here for me.
No, I don't think there's. I mean, if you were to, I think if there was a 3K or under defense, I would probably go Chicago over Denver, but I think they're like the two that I would take a shot on.
Yep, I agree with you there. All right, we finished this up by building a lineup, James.
Okay.
So the question here remains, are we going to spend up at quarterback?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But the question is, which of the 3? Because, like...
You didn't want to build that Jared Goff lineup,
No, I thought about it, but the way my bank account's set up,
I got check-ins and savings.
Yeah, it's gonna take at least 3 business. Yeah, 3 business days.
I hear you. All right, can you just take a quick peek at the weather report for Philly there on Sunday? It's Hurricane Ian going to be making its way up. Is it going to impact Baltimore as well? I see the little rain symbol here.
I didn't think so, but let us. So as of now, it looks like there is a chance of rain in both Philly and Baltimore.
That's what I was worried about.
So, in case anyone's not aware, those are the 3 top quarterbacks on the board.
There's a hurricane coming through.
There is, sure. Right now, currently, in my backyard, there's a hurricane.
So, that's a little iffy, right? There's just like a little...
But what is the pivot, John? Like, where are you okay going? Outside of those 3, like...
I don't know how healthy Herbert is, right? Like, Herbert against Houston would be a pretty...
Practice in full today. 100% practice in full.
I know, but is he healthy? He's practicing. He threw 45 times.
Listen, some of those throws, I think you and I were on a call in that Chiefs game.
Yes, right after he broke his ribs, he threw a BB for like 35 yards. So...
I mean, we didn't mention Herbert all that much in like at the quarterback spot, but like he was the QB2 off the board this year. Yeah. If he's practicing in full,
all right. Well, with that, we didn't mention him at the quarterback position, so big swerve for anybody who is waiting.
We did mention Mike Williams,
and Austin Eckler and Gerald Everett. So
pat on the back.
We talked about literally everybody but the quarterback here, and we're gonna go with the quarterback to start our lineup. So now running, but we liked a lot of the mid-tier running back guys. I think we have to play Jamal Williams.
Yep. And then I guess it depends on like we're probably swerving away from Diggs' speed.
Are we playing Brees Hall? Are we playing Brees Hall?
We can play Brees Hall, but do we want to talk about like the top running? I mean, we liked receiver more than we liked running back, right? Like we loved the top of the receiving core.
We do.
I mean,
if we're playing, all right, let's do our
Breece Hall in tournaments, dude.
Let's do our defense. I'm gonna lock in the Cowboys defense. Can we do that?
Okay, I'm down with that. Okay. Yep, 100%. That feels like multiple turnovers waiting to happen.
Right. We talked a lot about Breece Hall. I like Breece Hall.
I like Breece Hall too. Do you want to like build our receiving and then see where we're at? Because we're obviously playing Mike Will. I think at this point with Keenan Allen leaving practice early. Yep. Right. So there's our Herbert Mike Will stack.
Do you play Everett with Williams and just do that?
You know, as we've grown as analysts and the way that we build lineups, you know that I am a full stack kind of guy. So
the question is like, if we do Mike Williams, you can do Josh Palmer, you can do Gerald Everett, or as we talked about, Austin Eckler.
Right? Yeah.
So,
and he's different because he'll get 10 targets. Like there's that's different. Like usually the running back, receiver, quarterback thing is, right? It's like I like that. I kind of
want to go Ceedee Lamb here.
I'm perfectly fine going Ceedee Lamb. Perfectly fine going there.
Okay. We have $4,900 a player for a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, and a flex. Obviously, we're going low at tight end. We could go Bellinger if we're not going to go
Everett. And then what's Palmer's price? Palmer's $5,000.
Bellinger, that gives us $5,600 a player with Bellinger for a running back, a wide receiver, and a flex.
Dude, the snap share's been great for Bellinger.
Yeah.
In the last two, I mean, week 2 was fine. Week 3 was, and then obviously they lost Shepard and any other solid target option that they had. Bellinger 43 snaps.
You know what? I'm gonna put Christian Watson here at 3,700.
Okay.
That's gonna give us 6,500 a player.
That's with Bellinger.
With Bellinger for a running back and a flex, $6,500 a player.
Oh, that's interesting, dude. Because that gives us a lot of wiggle room. I almost want to say our flex should 100%. We should get a third receiver in there.
So if we put Saquon Barkley, do you want to do Barkley and Bellinger though?
No.
No.
But you liked Chubb.
I do like Chubb. 7,900 for Chubb. It gives us 5,200. That gives us Palmer as our flex.
Little triple. I like it, dude.
All right. Well, Josh Palmer there. So we got Justin Herbert, Jamal Williams, Nick Chubb, Mike Williams, Ceedee Lamb, Christian Watson, Daniel Bellinger, Josh Palmer, Dallas Cowboys defense with $200 left over.
You know?
Chubb could run for 120 and 3 scores against Atlanta. That's
to our flex.
Right?
Christian Watson into our flex there?
Well, we could.
Just to make sure the 1 p.m. game is the Chargers. So just in case Christian Watson just suddenly late scratch and we're like, oh, that's...
And again, we have $200 more if you wanted to go the Kenny Golladay route there. You know, if you
yeah, yes, that's what I was actually. That was my angle.
That was the angle, right? You wanted to get the Kenny.
Yes, play as many giant pass catchers as possible was my angle.
Actually. Yeah, it felt like that was where you were going with it. I just figured I wanted to complete the thought for you.
Sure was.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we got then. That's our Justin Herbert, Jamal Williams, Nick Chubb, Mike Williams, Ceedee Lamb, Josh Palmer completing the 3-man stack there with the Chargers against Houston. Bellinger, Watson as our punt flex, and the Dallas Cowboys defense there, $200 left over. That is our week 4 DFS podcast live stream preview for Sunday's main slate. I'll be on the Sunday live stream with Andrew Cooper from 9 to 11 over on Better Sports, but also on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel as well. You can get in the Discord and ask questions. We'll do some start sits. We'll go matchup previews, update you on all the injury news there as well. Howard Bender will have the playbook and the example lineups, the playbook on Saturday, the watch throughout the rest of the week, the dartboard on Saturday, and the example lineups on Sunday as well. You can also catch Howard Bender and Justin Fensterman on SiriusXM Sports Radio from 7 to 9, I think it is, on Sunday morning as well, getting you all the real early news, all those Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport injury tweets. They'll have you updated there. And, of course, you can find Grande likely in the Discord answering your questions on Sunday as well. So any final thoughts for the people at home, James?
No, but I mean, I feel like I'm thinking about what I'm going to buy with my million. What have you thought about what you're going to buy with yours?
We're gonna be splitting it, obviously, because we're both playing this.
Shoot. All right. Well, you're 500K. Well, we'll take a family.
When I buy my house next to yours, we'll use the rest of the money in our conjoined backyards to build a studio.
Dude, how cool would that be if we just had a Fantasy Alarm studio here?
Yeah.
We'd have to make it hurricane proof though, John.
It has to be hurricane proof. We got to put the internet wires underground so we don't lose it. So anyways, that wraps it up here. Again, if you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, we got two different options for you. One, you want to go to fantasyalarm.com/allpro. If you want to use promo code NFL50, you'll save 50% off the first 6 months of that package. It comes out to about $19.98 a month for the first 6 months. Or if you just want to buy the annual package, one price for the year, that's on sale, 40% off as well. You can go there and pay for the year. I think it's like $240 for the year. So, and you get more than just access to NFL content. You get literally everything we do on site. Any DFS and seasonal content, you get it. One package, all pro. Come join us. NBA DFS is 3 weeks away. James and I will be doing daily coverage for that. NHL DFS starts next Friday. NHL cheat sheet is already out. You know, we're still doing college football, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, esports, you name it, we cover it all under one package. Be an all-pro with Fantasy Alarm. Join today. Get involved, and you get access to our premium Discord, which is maybe the coolest thing. You can talk to myself, Howard Bender, Andrew Cooper, James Grande, Justin Vreeland, Matt Sells, Ryan Hallam, Dan Malin, Ray Kuhn, Colby Conway, Dylan Clemens, you name them. We're in there answering your questions, getting you guys ready for each night's slate. That's about it, James. That's all I got to say. Sign up. Click the link below the video if you're watching on YouTube. Go to fantasyalarm.com/allpro if you're listening on the podcast. Take advantage of the offer today. James and I, or Howard and I, will be back next week. We'll talk to you guys later.